All right, we've got Jeff Slobotski here with
Shonna Dorsey and
Paul Jarrett.
Look at that, we got it. Good to see you guys this morning.
That was a 40-second try.
Yeah,
you got it.
What we need to do it again? Cut from the top. Exactly. This is brought to you by Zoom. Paul, good to see you. Yeah, in Lincoln, right, today?
Yes, in Lincoln, in my lovely bedroom with 2 dogs, 2 kids, and just like everybody else, right?
Yeah, exactly. Good, good. How are things going? I know Shonna and I are kind of jumping in with founders, and you're one of the guys that have been around for quite some time in this community, this ecosystem. So yeah.
Is it already? Yeah, it's been what, 8 years now, man.
Yeah.
Our first employee had his work anniversary today, so that's pretty wild.
Awesome.
Things, probably mostly like everybody else, as far as the family goes and the things that matter, like everything is fine. And, with the business, like we're just getting, death by a million paper cuts, probably like everybody else. So it's just one of those like by the hour things, right? And Saturday I woke up and I remember thinking, we wrapped up breakfast with the boys. We have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I remember thinking like, okay, like everything's good. What a great day. Like things are, and then I thought, don't say anything out loud. And like, sure enough, within like a couple hours, some shit hit the fan. So, oh, sorry. Hopefully I can curse.
Real life.
Yeah, that's funny. The don't say anything out loud piece. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because it's not only like in your household. So don't say, hey, everybody, we're good. But even on social, it feels like people are kind of a little bit like tiptoeing around being too positive. It's a little bit tricky right now. So how are you managing that? I've come up with some strategy and I just make it up as I go, but.
Yeah, I think, when this all first started going down, it was definitely like, I'm barely smart enough to realize like, okay, and mostly because I've made the mistake of kind of like, making social commentary or what have you, right? And I think, for the first couple of weeks, other than politics, because most people know I'm pretty opinionated about that. But the first, I think 2 weeks, it was very much like a conscious effort just to like close your lips and just observe, and you don't need to do anything, and which was interesting because I actually caught some like a lot of private messages and a lot of flack from people. Like, you have a following and you're a community leader, which I would never view myself as that, but it was kind of annoying. And I was a little bit like, well, what's wrong with just kind of observing for a moment? And I think just recently I've kind of sorted it all out. And, I think as long as we're respectful I just keep reminding myself that like, there are always people in a worse position than I am. I remember when I was little, and if I ever complained about anything, my mother would just snatch my shirt and say, well, at least you still have your legs. Some kids in this world don't have your legs, so I don't want to hear it. And like that is definitely echoing louder in my head than ever. So I think it's okay to kind of play both sides as long as you're open and honest and respectful. And I just always fall back on that, like authenticity and honesty, truth told well is kind of like what I like to think about. So but I don't know. I mean, it'll be, time will tell, right? I do love Mark Cuban's quote of most companies in the future will be judged on how they acted now. And I think that's going to hold true.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. That's really well said. I like your point around honesty too, Paul, because it's like, we can play the comparison Olympics, right? Well, at least I don't have this, or at least it's not this, but it's like, those are feelings that you have and things that you're going through that like no one else can take away or, right? Like push against. And that's okay. Like, so if you're feeling great today, like it's okay to feel great, right? If you're feeling like down, it's okay to feel down. Like you don't have to, yeah.
I always think of like, it's like a roller coaster, right? And when you're at the bottom, just kind of like look at the top. And then when you get to the top, like make sure and pause and look around as much as you can. Actually, years ago, One of my very first big Omahas, shout out to Big Omaha, you know, when it was ran well and amazing by you. I remember there was a speaker, and I forget, it was like a clothing company or something, but he said something along the lines of, you know, most entrepreneurs and most people are focused at the light at the end of the tunnel. Enjoy the tunnel. And boy, Stephanie and I, my co-founder and my wife, looked at each other and we were like, that's us. And we got to like really enjoy the tunnel, not just sprint to the end. And I think that is important for people to pause. And, you know, that's you know, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of positives right now, right? Like,
Yeah.
November, I was home 8 days. I was out, you know, working contracts, doing presentations. You know, my travel schedule has always been a little bit insane, and I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of love not having to do that and just being home with the boys, right? So there's a lot of negatives right now, but there's a lot of really cool things. I think the world, and particularly America, it's going to be much different, you know, in a couple of years when this all is kind of a distant memory. And I think it's going to be, I think we're all going to be much better for it.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think that this is one of the few times in history that I know of anyway, where there's a worldwide, well, pandemic obviously covers that, but where we're all impacted by this thing for the most part. I know there's like a very few pockets around the world where it hasn't touched, but for the most part, we're all kind of going through the same thing. And that's
right.
I've not been through that. I remember 9/11, that was an American issue, you know, and then a lot of the big things that have happened have been just really narrowly focused. So this is very interesting.
Yeah.
Times. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good, Paul. And I think you touched on too, kind of one of the positives, right? Like spending more time with family, right? It's just like slowing the pace down, right? It's like, I feel like sometimes that's tough because you're like, as entrepreneurs and like optimists generally and proactive, you're like, what can I do? What can I accomplish? Where can I go? But now it's like nowhere, you know?
Sometimes
so, yeah.
Nothing, right? Sometimes the answer is just chill. And, you know, I do have to admit, I've had quite a few conversations with entrepreneurs, and, you know, there really seems to be two camps. There's the world's falling apart, we're all screwed camp, right? Like the sky's falling. And then there's kind of this like, and it's hard to get to it. But I'll have these conversations with entrepreneurs, and basically somehow or another it comes out like, man, I'm like, I actually feel really good in this situation. And when you ask why, it's like this thing where as an entrepreneur, you get so used to chaos, you get so used to failure, you get so used to those things. And then especially if you see a little bit of success and those days of kind of survival are gone, you know, in a probably sick, twisted way, you like miss the chaos a little bit, right? Like you miss like swooping in to like save the day or whatever it is. And there's you know, a pretty good percentage of entrepreneurs that I've talked to where we're kind of like whispering like, I feel uniquely qualified and kind of okay right now, but I can't share that with anybody, right? And I think that's a huge advantage for entrepreneurs, and they got to tap into that, right? Or not even necessarily entrepreneurs, just people that have dealt with like trauma or stress or whatever. Like, man, pull that tool out of the toolkit, right? Dust it off and use it to your advantage.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Paul, what's your, I don't know, your take, you know, in terms of Nebraska and our community or our region, you know, some things that you may see coming out of this, right? Are we uniquely positioned for specific opportunities, or yeah, what's your general kind of forecast, if you will, right? None of us know the future, especially in this time, but yeah, any thoughts?
Yeah, so, you know, I haven't given a ton of thought to that. And when I have like talked to a lot of local entrepreneurs, it's just kind of all over the map, right? And so I don't know if I have kind of like a prediction on how things will be, but I do know that I believe the correct thing to do, and this is like a phrase that I've been using with, you know, kind of those late night conversations with entrepreneurs, is be appropriately aggressive, right? Be respectful, but like take advantage of the opportunity, right? There's always opportunity in chaos, or whatever that quote is. And that's the thing that I think when the dust settles, I'm excited to see like, what are the new companies, right? What are the, and this probably doesn't sound very good, but like, what are the companies that fail and like what's left over, right? Working with a lot of multi-billion-dollar, very large retail companies, you see the layoffs, you see, 100,000 people let go, you see programs get cut, and that isn't necessarily bad, right? Like that's leaving a lot of opportunity for other folks. And I got a buddy that was doing a company, and then he kind of has switched over to doing masks. And I got another buddy that brewed beer, and he switched over to doing sanitizer, right? And so I think those are the appropriate things, right? We're really focused on specialty fulfillment, and I think the future of our business will probably be specialty fulfillment. Not our choice, right? What the market wanted. But there's a lot of other fulfillment companies that are shutting down right now, or whatever, right? And so I think that and I think it is unique to the Midwest, where we're all so timid. Everybody's like really like conservative or whatever, and that's why I'm kind of like, hey, be appropriately aggressive. Like go take advantage. Like if I was a coach, I'd be like, go get the ball. Like just go get it. Be like, but it's in the mud and there's people jumping on it. It's like, doesn't matter. Go get the ball. And I think those people are gonna be grateful that they did it. And these are the conversations that we have a lot with our team, right?
Yeah. And that's a good point. I was thinking about, I can't recall his name right now, but I know his first name is Chris. I think it's Hughes, who owns Artifact, the garment bag store, high end, right? And so similar to what you're talking about, switch direction, is producing masks. But the great thing about it is now he's not talking about like, hey, you really need your garment bag now because you're working from home. He's like, we're shifting to a market that actually makes more sense and is adding value. But it's very interesting. So yeah.
What a time.
Mm-hmm.
I am really the kind of eating, sleeping, living, breathing in e-commerce. It is an interesting space to be in, because I think it's funny, because I said this probably the third day that it happened. I said, it feels like e-commerce has been launched to 10 years in the future and everybody's scrambling, right? And I'm proud to say that, sure enough, I was listening to The Economist, and there was a Harvard professor, and he literally said the same thing. I was going to call me Professor Jarrett, because that makes me as smart as him. But like
put a PhD after the name. Yeah.
Right. That's a scary thought. But like, what does your industry look like in 10 years, right? Like, what does that? Because I think a lot of, the timeline of business, just got fast forwarded, not just e-commerce, but a lot of companies, right? And that's even applicable to the stock market, like, thank God, I've focused my portfolio on like e-commerce and really things that I know. More as a hobby than anything, but I didn't really feel the impact for more than a couple of days in the portfolio of the economy. And if you look at there's a Vanguard, what is it, VGT? There's like a technology stock, kind of like a mutual EFT, whatever they're called. And I think that's a good indication. I think those, if you really want to get a feel for what's going to happen or what's happening, I think looking at those EFTs and what's doing well and what isn't doing well is a really good indicator of the industries that will, succeed and not succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good. Paul, it's good to, it's always good to catch up with you, whether it's on Zoom or in person, and see you and kind of follow along. So I'm glad family is doing well. And if folks want to find out more about you and Bulu Box online, where can they do that?
Here we go. There's way too much. So the company is bulugroup.com. If you're interested in hearing me ramble on more and whatever, there is pauljarrett.com. It is our biggest new business generator. I feel like I have to defend it, right? Interestingly enough, we've just found that people want to be sold by a person, not a company, right? So there's pauljarrett.com, and then shameless plug for a little hobby, probably something to keep me sane, but we started a podcast called Fail Disclosure. And anonymous callers call in and give their infamous, crazy, inappropriate work stories that they can't share. So that's probably been a really nice distraction more than anything. So
that's good. That's good. Cool. Well, we'll make sure to link everything up in the program notes as well. And yeah.
I don't know how the podcast sharing goes, but I think like now I have to like give you a shout out. I don't know. I get all these like, you know, lists of like how to run a podcast, and I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, ah. So yeah, we'll have to do whatever that is.
Awesome. Well, good, Paul. I appreciate you joining Shonna and I. And yeah, let's we'll keep in touch as things progress, and eager to see how we all come out of this in a couple months and so forth down the line. So thanks, Paul, for joining us, and we'll talk to you here soon.
See you soon, Paul.
Thank you both. Thanks everybody for listening. Jeff, go put some pants on now.